think that's good now. You're good.
So when we were putting this box together, honestly, I started with the idea that I wanted Naima to dye the yarn. We've been working with her and she does amazing things. And I was like, the good vibes people need to be introduced to Naima and her magistry. So I asked her what inspiration she had, and she mentioned Bronzeville, and so that's what started me into looking into it. So now we are going to introduce Naima Bond. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
We got a bunch of questions. We had a bunch of questions, and a couple of questions, and so and if you've got other questions, you can throw them into the chat, and we'll get to it. So we've been, sharing a little bit of history of Bronzeville, but what was it about Bronzeville that called you, that inspired you to make this this color yarn?
Well, I came upon the idea because, well, I was just thinking, well, someone said in the quote in the comments, that's Black History Month. I'm Black, and I also, so there's like about 10 reasons why I picked this. It's also because I grew up in Hyde Park, which is the neighborhood one of the neighborhoods south adjacent to Bronzeville. Well, thank you. I'm so glad everyone really likes it. I really like the yarn combo. I just thought it was just really worked. And Janet, that was your idea. So I really love that idea of picking up the blue and doing two skeins. Yeah, so I grew up right next to Bronzeville in Hyde Park. And Hyde Park, for people who don't know, is a neighborhood that's right on the lake. So it's right at the eastern edge of the south side of Chicago. And it's where the University of Chicago is. So that Hyde Park is a very interesting neighborhood. And I suggest if anyone's coming to Chicago, you should go there because it's really cool. It's a mixture of all sorts of different people. And I think that's because partially because of the just history of Chicago, but also because of the college or the university and all. I mean, the university really has like a big sway on the neighborhood and the area, which is a positive and a negative. And I know he was talking about that in the video. Forgot what his name was. So all my life, I've been traveling through Bronzeville, next to Bronzeville, going to Bronzeville, eating, like there's a couple of good restaurants in Bronzeville, just that kind of thing. So one thing that, as soon as you were telling me, what Good Vibes Yarn Tour was and what what I was, supposed to do as, kind of the assignment, I was just like, oh my gosh, Bronzeville, this is perfect, because I think that when people think, Chicago or, a location in Chicago, they would just think, oh, Chicago. So, like the generic Chicago. But I think Bronzeville is this unique little gem that is so historically significant. And recently, there's been a big influx of people wanting to kind of uplift the memory of it and kind of rejuvenate the neighborhood, because parts of it are really kind of have kind of like fallen to, I don't know, just kind of poverty and neglect not because of the people, but because of kind of city bureaucracy. So one thing that's very important about Bronzeville is that there's about 1 million murals. There's murals everywhere, all over the place. And you can really feel the history, because I don't think they talked too much about it in the first video we watched, but there were a lot of artists and a lot of musicians and a lot of culture in Bronzeville. And so it's reflected still today with all of just the art is everywhere. I can think of 2 Black-owned art galleries that are in Bronzeville, and I know there are more. So it's kind of this little, just like beautiful spot that I felt kind of a connection to even though I don't live there, but I've, you know, like if I'm ever gonna, my mom lives in Hyde Park. So if I'm ever going to visit her and I take the train, I have to like walk through Brownsville basically to get to her house. So it's kind of like, you know, I was just like, oh, people should know a little bit more. And for me, I felt like those colors in the variegated skein really reflected kind of in my mind what I was seeing and thinking about when I thought about all those murals and those blues and the brown of like a kind of like a brownstone building, and then the blues and the greens and different things, you know, in the paintings on the building. So that's kind of where that came from.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And this is the postcard, oops, that we put together. This is an actual mural in Bronzeville. So
Very
just
cool.
so you know. Okay, you talk about too, you know, we put the nature walk you did was in the Facebook group, so people got a chance to watch that. What is it about nature that how does your inspiration in nature translate into yarn?
Oh, well, I think I've always been interested in nature, even though I've grown up in Chicago my whole life. You know, my mom, one of the things we were allowed to watch on TV was like nature shows. Anything about nature, animals, the earth, or anything was, you know, like definitely an okay thing. And my mom is also a huge nature fan. So she really kind of started us in thinking about that. And my dad, he's deceased, but he also was like a huge nature person. And when we were very little, he used to take us on nature walks, because we used to live in Normal, Illinois for about like a year, as my mom was a professor at the, what is it? University of Illinois at I can't remember what. Yeah, I think it's, oh yeah, I think that's what it is. I always forget if it's University of Illinois State University, one of those. So there's a lot more kind of places to wander. And so when I was maybe like, this is like when I was like 4 or 5, but those memories really like instilled a love of like exploring. ISU, someone saying, yeah. So there's a lot more nature there, and we used to go on nature walks. So when we came back to Chicago, I already had those eyes, you know, I was like ready to look. And so I've always kind of just been in love with exploring and trying to find the nature in Chicago. So it's really funny because we have Lake Michigan to the east, and then we have a lot of kind of like dedicated space for nature here. So there's there's lots of parks, but there's also lots of just like, this place is a prairie and we're preserving it, you know? So it'll just be kind of like right in the middle of the city. There's just like, this part's for like a prairie for now. So it's really cool. And when you do that, then all the animals come. So I've seen, recently I've seen a beaver, I've seen a weasel, things I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing in Chicago, but it's just really cool. I really have, it's just always been an inspiration. So when I was much younger and I was in art school, I tended to do a lot of stuff about nature and animals and different things. And so they've always been, though, as you can see, this is a painting that I did after college and after grad school. But it's always been with like the brightest colors I could find. I've always been that way. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna draw a cat, but it's gotta be like neon purple. That's what's, like that's just like where my mind goes. So everything I've ever really kind of touched artistically has just been like bright, bright, bright. So I think when I first learned about dyeing yarn, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, because all it is literally just color, I mean, just take a color and, just throw it all over everywhere. So it's been kind of like the best way to express my love for color. So funny enough, so this is a story I like to tell because I think about it a lot and how wrong it was. But in graduate school at the Art Institute, I had a critique, and I can't remember even what my art was, what the artwork was, but it was kind of abstract. It had a lot of neon, kind of like neon red and black and then some other neon colors. But as I was talking, I was talking about nature being an inspiration. And one of the people who was doing my critique was like, I don't really get it. There's no neon in nature. Like, I can't really understand why you're using all these neon colors. And I was like, excuse me, but you're completely wrong. But I didn't say that at the time because critiques are very intimidating. But I can just think of like a million reasons why she was wrong. A lot of that stuff at that time I was doing was inspired by magma and like volcanic eruptions. So if you think of like magma flowing out of a volcano, it almost looks neon to your eye. Undersea fish are neon and bright colors, birds, bugs. She was just wrong, just flat out wrong. So I think I'm mostly inspired by nature and also pop culture a lot. But yeah, someone's saying coral, undersea, Amazon plants. Thank you. Yeah. So all of that plus a healthy dose of popular culture and TV is really what inspires me the most, I think. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I know that you went to Oberlin College and the Art Institute of Chicago, and it looks like you've got a painting behind you. I'm wondering if you could
Sure.
the art.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't want to move my camera too much, but what I have a couple of fun things that I did. I think they're basically just after graduate school. So, or in between, I think these are from in between college and graduate school. So these are kind of like, they're drawings with colored pencil. And I think, these are just pen and colored pencil. And this is a musk ox, and it's just, I don't know if you can see. I did some sewing. I just was really interested in like putting a lot of different things together. And the funny thing is now in my life, so when I was in art school, I did, my major was painting and drawing, excuse me. But now I kind of wish that I had known more about fiber arts, because I had a friend who's a fiber artist, and I didn't really know, like, I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what are you doing? And they were always doing some weird like sculptural thing that I was just kind of like in a different world at that time. I was just like, I don't really get what you guys are doing over there. But I really think that I would have excelled in the fiber arts if I had known a little more at the time when I was like picking my focus and things, because I ended up doing a lot of stuff that ended up being kind of like multimedia. This is backed by felt. Here's another from that same time. And it's kind of, I was just very like interested in, animals, but also those kind of like Audubon detailed photos of animals. And it has kind of like a sketch-like quality, and it always has like the animal's name there and all that kind of stuff. So here's another one like that. Let's see, I've got a bunch of stuff. So I was also doing a lot of kind of like, this is just like a kind of sketch from a sketchbook I had. And this is marker, what is that? Marker, colored pencil, and watercolor.
So cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I've always been just like, how many colors can we fit into it, and what, so here's an owl that I drew. I don't even know. I can't even read what that date says, but I think it said 2009 or something like that, which is after graduate school, a little bit after graduate school. Yeah, so yeah, and the painting behind me is kind of, it's very textural and multimedia. So it is mostly, it's mostly acrylic paint. Yeah, I had to look at it.
Very cool. Very cool. So what made you start, you made you transition from painting and drawing to yarn?
Well, I've always, my aunt taught me how to crochet when I was a very little person. I don't even remember when that was. So it seems like I've always known how to crochet. And I've always been really, it's been kind of a thing that I just did in my pastime or whenever I was feeling it. But I never really thought about like like local yarn shops, or, you know, anything besides like your average Michael's acrylic yarn until probably 2019 or something. Like I really didn't know much about it. And I was following a couple people on social media that really caught my eye because their colors were brighter. And there was one person who ended up having a yarn dyeing workshop here in Chicago. And I was able to go to that. So I went to that and learned how to dye yarn. And I was just like, this is it. I love it. This is like what I want to do. And I really hadn't, like I said, up until maybe like 6 months before that, really even understood what the difference between, you know, like a more, I don't want to say luxury because I don't really like that distinction, but you know, a yarn that you wouldn't find at Michael's that's like a maybe from an independent dyer or an independent artist or something like that. And so it really kind of opened the doors to the world of, you know, what was there, but also it made me really realize that I really love dyeing yarn. And it's just a really good expression of my love for color.
We are so lucky. We are so very lucky.
I found this is from that workshop. I don't have anything worked up in this, but it's just a black yarn with a few flecks of like bright colors, because we were learning a technique of how to do reverse speckling. So this is one, I think this is the same technique that I used for the Halloween yarn from the Wraith, the dark green with the different colors. And you take the skein and you tie off different spots where you don't want the dye to be, and then you dye it, and then you pull off the string, and it has like a nice space of white. So you could do it, you know, you could sprinkle a little color in there or squirt color, you know, it's just a really cool technique. So yeah, this is the very first, before it was even Sister Ananse yarn, before I even opened shop or anything. This is one of the first ones. This is also, oops, I dropped that one and it went off into the nethers. I don't know where that went, but that was another one that was just after I'd learned how to dye. But it rolled away. Oh, here it is. There it is. And this was, I remember very distinctly being kind of like, I wonder what it'll look like. You know, I didn't really understand like how much dye I should be using really, or like, you know, how bright the colors were. So this was when I realized, oh, when it says neon, it's neon. And I was like, wow. So I was trying to do very subtle, peachy, soft tones like this, and this is what happened. So I was like, oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a lot of, from what I understand, a lot of trial and error. And oh yeah, this is how it works. So how did you come up with the name Sister Ananse?
So Ananse the spider, I don't know how much people know about the like folklore behind it, but it's a West African and Caribbean like person or a spider from like fairy tales basically. And he's always into mischief. Sometimes he can be helpful for you, and other times he's just kind of like messing around with different animals and, you know, kind of just like laughing behind their backs. But in other times he, you know, and yeah, there's several children's books about Ananse the spider. And so he, you know, sometimes he's very helpful. Other times he's like tricking everyone. I remember distinctly there's one where he climbs in a melon and like eats all the melon inside. So he's like inside the melon, eats from the outside, from the inside. And so he starts tricking other animals and he's like, I'm a talking melon, oh ha ha ha. And they're all like, oh my God, that melon is crazy. And he kind of gets in trouble in his own self because he's too fat after eating all the melon. He can't get out of the hole. So he's like, oh, just kidding, please help me, everybody, you know. So it's kind of like all those kind of things. And I always really loved spiders too. And I just really one day was just like, oh my goodness, this is perfect for my business because, you know, a spider, what do? They're, you know, they weave and they make their webs. And then I just immediately was just like, I think if it's Sister Ananse, that's it. It's perfect. Yeah.
Cool. There was a question. How many skeins did you make for the yarn tour? I know the answer to that. If you don't, and
I'm trying to remember. I think it was 360. Was it? Two 180 and 180s for each.
Yep.
Yes.
And how long did that take you?
Let's see. Probably 3 weeks, which was pushing, kind of like I was kind of huffing on it. I was going pretty quickly, but yeah, 3 weeks. But it was really good because I dye yarn out of my kitchen, so I have a limited space. But it really forced me to kind of like hone my just my methods, and it really actually helped me be able to do more in a shorter amount of time. Because at first I was like, oh, that's a lot. I think I mean, I'm good, but like, wow, that's a lot. I was kind of like, ooh. But it really ended up being a blessing because it really, it definitely helped me streamline a lot of stuff and kind of, yeah. Oh, I see someone asking what kind of dye do I use? I dye with acid dye, which is a couple different brands of acid dye, which is the kind that you use for animal fibers. So like wool, silk, and anything that's like an animal fiber. It also works on nylon, but if you're doing cotton or cellulose fibers, so cotton, bamboo, anything that's like a plant fiber, those don't work. You have to use the other ones, which I don't remember what they're called. But like if you were doing tie dye or something like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people were asking me if there were other skeins. There are not. We have a very few. Yeah, we have a couple, but they'll be in our store at a later date when we have the Good Vibes store, when we open up the merch, store. But so there isn't extra of that to buy, but we do have at String Theory. Naima just dropped off last week a glorious selection of zebra fingering. So not the DK, but the same black and white base in fingering. And then we also have the fingering that she used for last fall when we did a mystery knit along. That is 75 merino, 25 nylon, and that's in colors. And then we also have DK in this color burst kind of thing that she was doing too. So I did an Instagram and Facebook video about it yesterday and showed all the colors. So if you're interested in seeing those, they're on our website. But if you're interested in seeing the specific skeins all spread out and opened up, you can look for that video.
Someone was asking about the sourcing of my yarn, and it's different for different weights. But for most of it, I purchased from an American company that's a wholesale company. And then I think most of their yarn, I usually use merino wool most of the time, just because it's so versatile and it's like super soft, and it's pretty versatile, and it's pretty affordable too. And I think that almost all of that comes from Peru, I believe. And I think there's some different ones. So if it's what is the other one? Well, there's some different ones that are from Europe, but I think most of them come from South America and Central America, from the ones that I get.
Cool.
Yeah.
So is there anything else? Anybody have a last minute question? Or Naima, is there anything that we didn't ask you that you want to tell us about?
Oh, I just thought that people might want to see this sock blank. I did something for myself for once, and this is just a sock blank that I did the other day. I thought you guys might want to see that. So this is,
that's so
oh, I'm right in the sun. My sun has changed. Okay, that's much better. So this is a sock blank, which are super fun. I'm like in love with sock blanks because it's like not monotonous at all. So you get, there's color changes, there's little pops, and it gives you a nice ombre color change gradient. So I thought you guys might like to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys don't follow Naima on Instagram, you really should. She's always posting something about her process or something that she's working on. And it's always fun to watch. So I will put her link in the chat. Oh, there we go.
Oh no, it's _.
It's
Naima Bond Art. Yes, because unfortunately, it's such a pain sometimes. So that's an old, yeah. Oh, it's _ Naima Bond Art _. Sorry. I can post it on here too.
Everyone ignore the two things I just typed.
Sorry. But my old account, it was one of those things where I made my old account on the wrong email, which I didn't know, but Instagram kind of lets people do that. And so I got locked out of it and was never able to get back on it. So that is a dead account, but it's _ Naima Bond Art _. So.
Perfect. And then one last question. Ooh, we're running kind of late, but one last question. Do you have a favorite dye lot? I assume color.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
Do you have a favorite? She says dye lot. I'm assuming she means color.
Oh,
or maybe one of them that you sent over here. Which one was your favorite?
Oh, it really, like, sometimes I'm just like in love with blues, and then I go from greens and different things. Right now, I'm starting to really get into purple. I'm really like feeling purple these days. No problem. Yeah, so there was one color, I think it's called amethyst, that I sent over to you all. And I was just like, ooh, I have to keep playing with these purples. So I have, with each color, I have about 6 or 7 different shades of that color. So sometimes it's really fun to just like stick within one color and just see what you can, how light can it get? How dark can you get it? Well, just really, yeah. So right now it's purple.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to join us. This was delightful.
Absolutely.
Loved getting to talk to you and sharing what I know about you with everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you very much.
And you're very, very welcome. Thank you so much for all your support and just kindness. And you all are so kind. Wonderful. Yeah. Glad that we connected.
Yes. And now I know that we're going to have to order sock blanks next.
Oh yeah. There's so much fun to dye. And there's so much artistic license in them. And they all kind of blend into a really beautiful gradient. So it's always like a really fun kind of like mystery, like what you're going to get.
Yeah, it's going to be good on my list. It's on my list.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really
Thank you, Naima.
We'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.